Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Shut Up David series. Today, we've got a special guest all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, joining us. It's 6 a.m. in the morning for me here, but I believe it's 3 p.m. in the afternoon for him there. Sam Goodman. Sam Goodman's going to be joining us right now. So let me get the introduction out of the way, and then we can bring him on and have a chat. Sam's a consultant dedicated to helping organizations improve safety and effectiveness through the principles of human and organizational performance. Sam is an industry veteran with over 20 years of experience in safety consulting, coaching, and various training across several sectors. Sam's mission is to operationalize HOP with client organizations, providing practical tools, guidance, and resources to bring those concepts to life. Sam also aims to foster a supportive community around HOP, collaborating with other experts while sharing insights through platforms like the Hop Nerd podcast, the books he's authored, articles he's written, and speaking engagements. With deep experience in translating HOP theory into real-world applications, Sam offers cutting-edge solutions to enhance workplace safety, culture, and performance. Bit of a long intro there, but he's done a lot of work in this area, so it's with great pleasure that I welcome Sam Goodman. Sam, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast, mate. Very nice to see you.
I'm super happy to be here, man. And let me throw a thank you right back at you because it's like 6 a.m. where you're at, and I've got to say thank you for that's quite the time difference, but we make it work.
Yeah, we certainly do. That's the beauty of technology, isn't it? These days as well, we can get to have the chats across different time. Well, in fact, like you said before, I'm actually in the future for you now.
You are. You are living in the future, and I'm still waiting on those lotto numbers. So whenever you want to pass those along, in fact, I would prefer you not say it here. If you could just send them to me in an email, I'd really appreciate that.
I will do. I'll text them to you afterwards. Any key sporting events from around the world as well. You want to know
perfect. Yeah. Anything, horse race, dog race, lotto tickets. It doesn't matter. You name it. I'm up for it if you want to share those with me.
So Sam, you've just finished a big work spree at the moment, haven't you? You mentioned there you just getting back off a big. I can't even get my words together. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. It's just like my brain is just not engaged.
Well, I want to know why
you've been very busy and you're relaxing.
I want to know why I'm the one that's drinking Red Bull. It's 3 p.m. where I'm at.
I know. I should be having one of those as well. But now what I was trying to get out, you've been really busy and you're getting a little bit of time to decompress and relax with the family. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, here, there, a little bit everywhere, and it's just kind of a little. I guess it's the eye of the storm, I guess, for my year so far in 2024. Just a few weeks home to get to decompress and take a little vacation. And my version of a vacation is sitting on the couch, catching up on Discovery Plus, but it's a vacation. Nevertheless, it works for me. That's what I like. But yeah, here, there, and everywhere. I just got back from spending time in Brazil, spending time in Mauritania, spent a couple of weeks in Nevada, here, there, a little bit of everywhere. And then right back to it, heading to Alaska in about a week, going to Chile, here, there, everywhere. I spent a good chunk of my life and I know you can relate to, and so many out there can relate to, is what I call in transit, where I'm not here, I'm not there. I'm just kind of stuck in the hellacious void in between, right? Planes, trains, automobiles, convoys, covered wagons, Ubers, bicycles, tricycles. I mean, you name it. I'm kind of stuck there.
Planes, trains, and automobiles.
Yeah, it's been a wild 2024 so far, and looks like it's going to be that much wilder as we continue on.
Mate, that's hectic. That's a busy schedule all over, literally all over the world. So what are you doing? I mean, it sounds like an obvious question, but like, what are these engagements that you're doing all over the world?
So a lot of what we're doing I'm sorry, I was that guy. Hold on. I'm going to mute my stuff because my computer's going to scream at me.
Hold on.
Let me turn off all of my notifications. My bad. I'm never that guy, but I'm that guy right now.
And I'm just checking mine to make sure it's on silent as well.
It's never the phone that gets me. It's the desktop notifications. right? And of course, right before this,
Ah,
had music cranked up, like blasting music in here, because that's what you do when you're not in a meeting, right, or having a conversation. And so my
yep.
volume's on about 100, and it's cranked to 11. It's cranked to 11, and then I was broken off. And yeah, so you get the emails that are
Yeah,
coming
yeah,
through.
yeah.
But back to your question, a lot of those are around hop implementation projects. A lot of those are around everything from teaching hop fundamentals to spending time with leaders to doing maturity assessments within organizations. A lot of that's field work down in the trenches, coaching learning team facilitators, and doing facilitating learning teams with learning team facilitators and preparing learning team facilitators. A
Yeah,
lot of it
right.
spent with senior leadership teams, and kind of all of that stuff that kind of goes along in this space. It's just a little bit of a hodgepodge of everything, to be completely honest
Yeah,
with you.
yeah, right. Do you like that?
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. Spending time. I mentioned the in transit thing. And I
Yeah.
do call it the hellacious void, because travel is a hellacious void, right? It truly is. Travel always looks amazing and glamorous until you do it every single week, right? And it is amazing and glamorous sometimes, unless you do it every single week. And where I'm going with this is that I'll gladly take the in transit mode to get to do the work that we do, to get to go spend time, boots
Yeah.
on the ground, in the mud, in the trenches with folks, helping them to really embed and operationalize those concepts within their organizations. It's just amazing. For me, I mean, I'm a nerd about work. I just love learning more about work, how stuff actually gets done from the people that actually do it, and getting to build relationships with those folks. I don't think it gets any better than that. At least for me, that's almost heaven on earth for me. I love it.
Wow. Well, I mean, mate, if you found something that you enjoy, something that you're good at, and doesn't even feel like work,
Yeah.
then that's the best
Yeah.
thing. But I mean,
The
just getting to travel is the great part of it as well. I mean,
Well, I don't know. So for me, the travel is the work. Everything I do once I get there,
right.
that's the fun part. The
Yeah,
getting
right.
there and
Okay.
getting back, to me, that's the work part.
Do you take time when you go to these new places? You said you're going to Brazil. Are you just come back from Brazil? Do you take time to actually, absorb a bit of the culture while you're there?
As much as I can. Yeah, as much as I can. I was fortunate enough, the engagements that we were doing in Brazil, the field work that we were doing in Brazil, I was really lucky to have about 7 days straight down there, which was great. So in the afternoons and the evenings, not too much, right? Because our days are pretty wild and jam packed full, but at least once we get done for the day, and all of these places that I visit, all the organizations I spend time with, they're such amazing and gracious hosts. They're real quick to say, "Come on, when we're done today, I'm going to show you something,
Yeah,
and
right.
show you the cool restaurant, show you the cool things in town." It doesn't matter. It
Yeah,
doesn't seem to matter where I go. There's always someone that's very obviously very proud of where they live, and they want to show it to you,
yeah,
and that's cool. And I'm up
yeah.
for it. Let's go.
They're the best type of tour guides, aren't they? The people who
Yeah.
are proud of where they live and they
Oh,
want
oh
to take
yeah.
you around and go, "This is my favorite little hole in the wall cafe," but they do the
Yep.
best bacon and egg, whatever it is, blah blah
And
blah.
yeah, and so the I'm not even going to try to pronounce the word because I don't want to get laughed at, and I would be laughed at rightfully so. But the little cheese bread things in Brazil, it's amazing, and I'm convinced also that you will not find better coffee on the planet, right?
Yeah, right,
Than
right.
what you find than what you find
Is
in
it
Brazil.
legal? Is it legal coffee?
In some I don't know, in some jurisdictions maybe not, right?
It's funny you mentioned Brazil, because I'm here in Australia, as you know, but the second or third most popular area for my subscribers on the YouTube channel is
Yeah,
Brazil.
yeah. Well,
They
that's one
just
thing that
seem to
I'll
be
say.
really engaged in this.
There's such a community of practice in Brazil.
Right.
There truly is. There's such a huge community of practice, and there are some amazing folks down there growing that community of practice each and every day, and so many organizations down there starting to think and move in this direction, and just move in a direction of doing things just a bit differently. And it's amazing. It really is. You get that bit of electricity, it feels like, in the air there, of like, yeah,
That's the
we're going
coffee. That's the
we're
coffee
going
they've
this way. It's
given
the
you.
coffee. It's the coffee and
It's
the
the
cheese bread. Yeah, I'm still amped, right? I'm still amped from it right now.
Don't do any drug tests or anything on those, man.
Well,
You'll be all
and
right.
even back to your point though, on you always find those folks that are proud of where they live and they want to show you. For anybody out there, if you ever venture through Phoenix, if I'm here, I'm more than happy to at least show you where you can get the best steak and the best cup of coffee. So
Awesome.
more than happy to share my love of the Valley of the Sun here with everybody if they come through.
I do have a bit of heritage with America, to be honest. So I lived in Boston, Massachusetts when I was a kid.
Okay, cool.
Which was a long time ago. Just so you know, it's like nearly 50 years ago now. So, but America's one of those places where I'm intrigued by, but there's so much you see, so that just almost puts you off. I don't know. It's beautiful, beautiful place, but I don't know, there's so much, like I said, so much you see, which just puts you off sometimes.
Yeah, I would encourage folks, because I have some folks that come in from overseas and especially from Europe. The first thing that they're surprised by is the scale of everything, I think. When you first get here and then you realize, especially here in the desert, it's a wide open country in a lot of ways, and you can just drive and drive and drive and drive. And a week's worth of driving and maybe pass a town in some of the Southwest. But the other thing that I'd say is the same thing. I think many folks that if you've not spent much time here in the States, and clearly it's a large country and it's so different from town to town, from state to state, from place to place. I would just tell you that if you have a poor experience somewhere, roll the dice again and try somewhere else. That's what we tend to do when we live here. Right?
It's so big you can literally do that and just have a new life, like a couple of hours drive down the road.
If you get to California and you go, California's not quite what I thought. Try Arizona. It's completely different.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing that I would say. I know, I understand. Trust me. When you're looking at the States, especially in our weird and wacky and wild times that we have right now, it looks real wild from the outside, and it is kind of wild. But it's much better in some places than it is in others.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely then, if I find myself there, I'll definitely come via Arizona, because I live in WA, and it's literally the big desert of Australia, and Australia is of comparable size to America as well. You can drive for days and
exactly. And I would tell you that if the one thing that I found, whether I'm here, I venture farther over into California, into some of those areas, some of our other desertous country. I have not been to the Australian desert yet. Yeah, that's got to be on my list at some point. But when I'm in a desert in Africa, a desert is a desert. If you feel at home in the desert, you're going to like Phoenix. You're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It's nice. It's hot. It's dusty. Everything kills you. Right.
Hey, look, it's Australia all over again, isn't it?
You'll feel right at home.
Yeah. Hey, look, Sam. What does and I hate to go into like the sensible question type things, but I suppose we better do for the listeners and watchers, really, hadn't we? So you're traveling all over the world, doing all this amazing work and enjoying it, which a lot of people are going to hate you for, because not everyone enjoys their work as much as you do. Yeah. What does a typical engagement look like for you, with one of your clients? Obviously you're a consultant, you get to fly all over the world, having these great conversations with people in some amazing countries and amazing industries as well. But what does that look like from like start to finish for you?
Yeah, so it varies so much. It varies so much from client to client, from level of maturity, right? Exactly kind of where they're at, where they're hoping to go. We do everything from more standalone kind of learning teams education and consulting, right? The short-term kind of stuff as well. If they're in the right position to onboard those things, we'll spend some time in more of a short-term doing that. If it's more of a long-term, large scale, we're going in this direction. The one thing that I will say is most of the clients that I spend time with have already spent a good amount of time, as they should, laying a good amount of groundwork before they ever even contact me. Right.
Okay.
Before they even contact me, they've been spending at least a year, sometimes years, working on trust, working on some of those more really value focused things, spending time working on starting to create that environment where learning teams would have a stand a chance of actually being effective, right? They
Yeah,
spend
yeah.
a lot of time building up to that. I would tell you that the vast majority of the clients that I work with, before they even send me an email, I was going to say pick up the phone, but who does that anymore?
Well, yeah.
Before they hop on it, send me an email and we get on a Teams meeting. Before any of that ever happens, they've usually spent some years doing this internal, and they get to the point to where they're saying, okay, we've got the groundwork kind of where we want it to be. As far as we can take it, we need some help. Right.
Yeah.
So there is another end of that where, we spend time doing kind of as found maturity assessments and helping folks pull together a bit of a bespoke kind of blueprint to kind of give them some points. Right. And, you should maybe start here. This is a bit of a flexible plan, kind of working them through what that game plan, what that strategy should be. Right. All the way through to the end of that, from helping them build hop fluency through hop fundamentals and, learning teams basics, to deep dive learning team facilitator training, to the back end support of that, to helping them develop internal CBTs, for their organizations, internal video production, different things like that. It's really based off of where they're at and what they need. We try to meet clients where they're at. Right. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I want to share there, is that my job is not to go in and tell people that they're dumb and full of crap. Right? My job is to leave them in a better state than how I found them. And so we obviously start there. Where are you at? And let's figure out where we can go from here. And then we spend time with them doing just that.
Wow, that's crazy, because that's almost 180 to anything that we have. Well, most things that we have here in Australia. You mentioned there that most companies have spent a lot of time getting the foundations, getting the trust levels up in the organization, getting the values, really allowing those HOP principles, giving those HOP principles a place to land, so that they can grow. And then they want to work on the tools, and that's when they call you. It's the opposite here in Australia, really. People want the tools, and then they generally have to get told, look, you don't have the foundation, you don't have the principles, you don't have the ethics and everything in place in order for these tools to be effective. Why is that, do you think? Why is it that and that America is so different?
So I wouldn't say that America is so different in that. We do encounter clients, from time to time where that is the case. Right. And I'm a terrible business person. I'm just going to tell you that honestly right now. I'm a hop practitioner. I'm not like marketing guru, business guru. Right. Because I know all my MBA friends out there are going to like be throwing rocks at me when I say this, but I'm the first one to say, hey, you're not ready for this. You need to call me in a few years after you work on this. Right. I'm the first person to turn down a job, right? Just because it's not effective, right? It's not effective at that point. Okay, let's do some fundamental stuff, and then you need to work on the basics, and then call me in a couple years, and I think we can probably do something pretty cool. But until then, right? So I guess where I'm going with this is I don't know that it's across. I don't think it's across the board. One thing that I will say about what I've kind of done with my little tiny micro consultancy is that it is a micro consultancy, and everything that we do is very bespoke. Right. And a good majority of it, other than kind of trusted hop practitioners that we rely on, kind of partner organizations that we kind of partner up with for these larger scale projects. It's mostly just me. And I've spent a lot of years, as you kind of mentioned in the intro, with the podcast and the videos and kind of all this stuff. There's a couple really good benefits that come from that. Is first off, excuse me. First off, people know exactly the lunatic that they're getting. Right. That's first off, right. You're not getting suit and tie. Right. you know you're not getting. This is exactly what you get. If you watch the videos, you know what you're going to get. Right. There's always an element of social media cranked to 11, but I'm naturally a 10. Right. So you're going to get that. Right. The other side of that is, most of the community that we've grown around the podcast, a lot of the clients, the folks that want us to come help, not only do they know what they're going to get, but they've watched the videos, they know the conversations. We put so much of that information out there around laying the groundwork, around getting all those basics in place, around those things, that this isn't a magic bullet, that magic's not real, that we're not going to sell you an ABC 1, 2, 3 easy peasy lemon squeezy checklist and all as well. We know that's just not true, right? That's it just doesn't work. So most
Yep.
of the folks that we attract are usually not, every now and again, but are usually not just kind of the folks that are going, where do I get hop, into the Google machine and go, well, that Sam looks okay. It's usually folks that have been around the podcast, folks that have been around the social media kind of platforms, that have been following along for a minute. So I think that I really genuinely believe that I'm pretty fortunate as a consultant to almost have some of that pre-sorted by the time it gets to that point of saying, hey, yep, absolutely, you guys are in a cool spot. Let's do this.
Yeah. And I think as well, it may be because something else around that. I was talking to Ivan Pulpalidi the other week and his wife, and about just how long hop has been actually going in
Right.
America. And,
Yeah.
And it's unusual for us to hear because, I mean, it's only really got into the common language or parlance over here in Australia in the past 5 years, 5, maybe 10 years at a push, but it's still not really, it's still almost seen as the next new thing. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think in America, you've got that time served. It's been around for so long. People understand that they need to get those basics and elements in place first.
Yeah. I find that it's, interestingly, I find that some of what we encounter is a bit of maybe the other end of that spectrum, which is, as you mentioned, the next new thing. Some of the organizations that I spend a little bit of time with, you almost end up in this conversation of, hold on a second, let's not just jump to the next new bright and shiny. You have some years of work you've got to do. Yep, you're getting good at this stuff, but you're just now hitting the marathon phase, right? You're hitting the phase where you got to get some miles on your feet. You it's not just one and done and then jump to the next new thing. So maybe we're seeing a bit of the other side of that, where it's not necessarily seen as this is the next new bright and shiny. Many organizations, well, many's, I wouldn't say many, but some organizations, as they've kind of matured, some of those companies that have been doing this for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 plus years, they've gone through that excitement phase, and everything has a bit of an excitement phase. Then once they start to get to that, okay, here's doing the work phase, we start looking for the next shiny object to pick up. We start looking for the next bright and shiny something, especially if we're putting that magic S word on it, right? Because that seems to be this constant buzz in organization. What's next with safety? What's next with safety? What's next with safety? And really, it's like, why don't we just continue learning and improving gradually over time? I don't know that we need banners and those little poppers with confetti. Let's just keep making things better.
Yeah, but sometimes maybe you've got to call it something different, because you're absolutely right. There are, and I fall into this category as well a bit. I'm more of a creator as opposed to a maintainer. I love creating things. I don't necessarily love maintaining them once they're created. I can get a bit bored. I can get a bit bored and kind of go, okay, well, I've done that. What else is there? So okay. So you've got to rein them back, and you've got to go, look, this is actually working. Stick with it. Let's keep on learning.
Yeah, keep on learning. Exactly. Yeah, because that's always a caution point, right? Because we know that strong desire exists. What's the next bright and shiny? And a lot of times that starts to hit organizations right around the time that the excitement phase wears off. Right? We know the excitement phase. You get a lunatic like me or you or anybody else out there, they can come in and talk to you about hop, and everybody gets pumped. We're pumped, right? We're starting to figure out learning teams. We do some learning teams that are working. We do that for, we've got about a year or two of just excitement. I mean, we're just pumped, right? Things are changing for the better. We're making all these little adjustments. Things are going great. People are feeling good. And then all of a sudden in our organizations, a lot of times we'll say, well, hop slowed down. It's not. It's just you're kind of getting there. You're just kind of getting there. And when that's
not as much work as it was,
right? It's not as much work as it once was, and you don't have that bit of electricity that we were kind of mentioning before. And I don't know that there's anything all that wrong with that. But as people, we tend to go towards, we're stuck. And a lot of times I find that you're not stuck. A lot of times I find that you might be a little bored, because now you're getting to the do the work phase,
Yeah,
right? But
yeah.
but you're not
That
stuck, right?
that whole maintaining phase. Hey, talking about new things and shiny
Mm,
things, because I'm a bit of a, we call them magpies in England,
yeah,
and
yeah.
over here, they always go for the bottle caps and they always take them
Hmm.
back to the nest and whatnot. I'm a bit of a magpie to a degree, I've got to be honest with you. But talking about new things, what impact do you see? Because you're down there, boots on the ground, and you're all over the world as well. What impact is AI having on hop, as far as you can tell?
So I'm gonna give you the worst answer ever because
Oh, okay,
I deliberately avoid AI like it's the plague. And I have
okay,
no particular reason for that. I just haven't messed with it all that much. Now, a lot of the organizations that I spend time with, they are really interested in it. Now, a lot of the
yep,
organizations I spend time with, they're very cautious with it as well. But a lot of the conversation that's developing internal to these companies, at least the ones that I've been a bit privy to, is all around making things a bit easier,
yeah,
right? Which I'm all for. I think if we can make things a bit easier, I, I don't know that that's such a bad thing, right? So I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I have not spent much time around AI directly, but again, I know that that's a conversation that's happening. I know that that's something that's. I don't believe it's a bright and shiny. I believe it definitely holds a place in whatever our future workplaces. I won't even say future workplaces, what they look like right now,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But most of the work that I've been around, they haven't quite got their arms around how to best use that in their organizations because they're very cautious, as they should be. I'm going to steal a quote here from a friend because it's something that they've been working on with internal to their organization. I won't say the name because I don't want the world to know that they have, this is the quote, a shanty town of solutions as it relates to apps and AI and kind of all those
right,
different
okay,
things. But
okay.
they're being very cautious not to just make it a cluttered mess of solutions that, or sometimes solutions just in search of problems.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You understand that. So we're talking about structures that aren't really built on solid foundations, and we
Right.
really need to be cautious of, um, because maybe they're not offering the solution that we think that they're offering.
Yeah,
Is that?
so a lot of times we see as with anything, right? I mean, I do that with impulse buys, right? I have to avoid
Mm.
Instagram completely because I will buy everything on Instagram because it's really easy to buy stuff, and everything looks great until it gets here.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's exactly that. It's the bright and shiny thing, as we were kind of mentioning in our little bit of a previous conversation there. It's well, that looks cool. It's got all the bells and whistles. Let's buy it and throw it out there. That looks cool. Let's buy it and throw it out there. Let's buy it and throw it out there. Then all of a sudden you have just a bunch of stuff. And then
yeah,
almost always we end up with this structure built around all that stuff. That's usually a set of requirements that people have to use it.
yeah,
And at what point does that just become not all that helpful?
yeah, yeah,
I genuinely, I don't really care if it's a digital tool or a paper something or a program for this or an actual physical tool. If it's not useful to me accomplishing work, it's not a tool. It's just another rule. Right? A
yeah,
tool actually has to aid me in accomplishing something. So back, I guess, bringing that a little bit back into AI, I can see how that can easily fit into helping us accomplish some of those things that we need to probably accomplish, right? And so again, if it makes my life a little bit easier, it makes my job a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more efficient. Again, I think that's the conversation that's happening: is does this work in our world, and where does it work best? I think that's
yeah.
probably most of the conversation. So again, I'm not anti AI. I just don't I haven't fiddled around with it very much.
You just, I mean, you're just like me, just turning into an old man who just doesn't
Oh,
want to have to deal
dude,
with it all.
I am trying my best to figure out how to get to a flip phone. I am trying my best, and I just can't because back to we were mentioning this before. It's basically me, myself, and I around here.
Yeah,
Unless we do some
yeah,
some
yeah,
larger stuff. So,
yeah,
if you contact admin support, that's me. If you
yeah.
contact billing, that's me. If you
That's you.
contact the HR, that's me. If you
No, it's not. It's not. You've just got a lot of people at your place all called Sam. That's all it
oh, there's
is.
just lots
But
of Sams.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe I need to get into AI. That's that's
Well, you know what the bizarre
that's what
thing
it
is?
sounds.
I'm I I'm I can feel you because I wouldn't say held at arm's length, but I've been cautious about dealing with it and working with it and using
Mm,
it and all that kind of jazz. But I've got an ex-work colleague, and he's about 25 years older than me. He's about 20
mm,
years older than me, but he loves his technology and
yeah.
he's drip feeding me little bits and about, oh, Dave, you got that problem. Have you tried this? And it's like, oh, that's really good. And it's like, yeah, it's AI. And I'm like, damn,
Yeah.
I hate you for doing you just drip feeding me little bits here and there
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
solve my problems, and it's kind of like, okay, I now use AI. Let's just get that out of the way. My blog post, whatever it is, I use AI to help me in life. But as you said, it does help solve problems.
Yeah,
Speaking of which,
my problem is as you said, as we just said, I've barely figured out how to run a podcast, so I don't know if I'm quite prepared or qualified.
how long have you been doing podcasts now?
Oh gosh, I think the podcast itself has been around for maybe 6 or 7 years now,
How many
something like
episodes have
that.
you done there?
So I stopped numbering them, but I just started numbering them again today. So I sent out a post because we just released another episode. I had to throw the number in there because it shocked me. But the total count right now is 303, which is amazing to me. I know there are a lot out there that have a lot more, but for me, 303 episodes, it's just insane.
That's a lot.
A little
That's a
bit
lot, man.
over my little Christmas. I think it was around Christmas. My days run together. I think it was my Christmas project. I had some downtime around the holidays, and I can't sit still, right? So I have
Yeah.
to do something. So I went
It's all
back
the
and
Red Bull you're drinking.
it is. So what you don't see is the gigantic cup of cold brew coffee I drank earlier today too. But I sit down and I started like pulling together a little bit of a list of like all the guests that we had on, and when you go back and look through that, I mean, it's not just 300 plus episodes now. There's a ton of guests. I mean,
Yeah.
like 100 and some guests, those first couple of years, every episode was a guest episode,
Yeah.
and it's just great. That's what I really appreciated about it. Or what I really appreciate about it. And that was some of the idea around pulling together that guide is, those episodes hide way back there. Right. And just
Yeah.
be able to go look and just listen in like, oh, I know so-and-so. I want to go listen to this episode. Just be able to click it and go listen to it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool because I got to go back and listen to a lot of stuff with second time because I don't really listen to much. I just kind of edit really quick because I hate listening to them. But
So
then
do
to
I.
go back and get to listen and go, oh, that was I remember some of that conversation. That was really great. To go
Yeah.
hear some of those little nuggets from conversations
Yeah.
it's just amazing.
Yeah. I think I'm up to, because I just generally tend to convert these YouTube videos and then just extract the audio and put them
Yeah.
into the podcast. So I think we're up to like 15 or 20 or something like that
Nice.
now. So, which
Well,
is
that's the
not
thing.
too bad. But
No, that's great. That's great. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, that's the thing. Not to go down the podcast rabbit hole here, but most people that start podcasts just don't podcast, and that's kind of a problem if you want to have a podcast. What's the stat?
Yeah.
Like something like
Yeah.
the vast, like 80% of podcasts have 2 episodes, right?
Yeah, right.
Something like that.
That's because everyone thinks it's the shiny thing. I can get out there into the big
Mhm.
wide world. Shiny thing, done it. Let's move on. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Now, congrats on the, what'd you say, 20? About 20 episodes?
it's about. I think we've got about 15 at the moment.
Okay,
15
congrats on
guests.
15,
Yeah.
man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's not bad. I think it's 8 weeks or something along those lines. We're
That's
doing pretty
cool.
well in the subscribers as well. We're up around the 2,000.
Nice, even better.
Which is not too shabby, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But seeing as we started from nothing. But anyway, we're not here to talk about me. You have got a book out. Well, you've got several books. I
Yeah.
only just realized actually the other day when I was doing some research. I think you got 6 books out
There's
there
a
on
few.
Amazon.
Yeah, there's more than a few. I would have to look to tell you. But I think
And
some six-
yeah, well,
that's about right.
and your most recent one is this one here: 10
Yeah.
ideas to make safety suck less.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? And what was the inspiration behind this?
So the biggest thing for me was around operationalizing HOP. So the vast majority of my time I've not spent as a consultant, right? So the vast majority of my life I've spent working internal to organizations as a safety practitioner, as a HOP practitioner within companies, right? So in it, like actually in it, which to me, you end up with very interesting lessons trying to operationalize HOP as a practitioner in an organization in the normal corporate structure, right? Especially in our roles where you're kind of torn between, right? You're usually at some middle level of the organization, and you're
All
somewhere
all the
between you.
responsibility but no power.
Exactly. Right, exactly. The grizzly bear, no teeth, no claws. Right.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And so those 10 ideas, the book itself was all written from that perspective of operationalizing HOP
Yep.
internal to it while working internal to an organization. So those 10 ideas were some of the more actionable pieces that we found to be really important, right, as we went down this path. Because obviously we know there's the principles. We know there's those ideas, from Sydney with safety differently. We know kind of all those kind of different basic things. For me, it was to me, it was really writing that book was more about my interpretation and translation of that, of how we did that, how we took some of those ideas, some of those principles, and turned them into more actionable things, right? How we took that and worked with that in an organization to take it from very traditionally focused to a bit more into that new view space, and then kind of beyond that, right? Kind of the start of that, and then a bit beyond.
Yep.
So that's real. That was really the intent of that book.
Yeah, right. Okay. I like it. I like it because, I mean, anyone who works in safety knows that safety does suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bit of an obvious statement, but it's exact. And I know we joke about it. Having all the responsibility, no power, and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And these kind of cliches fall off our tongue, and especially when we're talking in groups of other safety practitioners. But it's so true, and it makes life so sucky. It
Yeah.
can make life very sucky, and if you can get around that and actually learn from somebody else who's actually gone, look, I know this isn't ideal, but this is what I found to help do that. Then, it's just kind of learning from all your mistakes, really. Well, not your
Yeah.
mistakes, but learning from all the areas that you've come up against hurdles and gone, this was a real sticking point for me, but this is what I've found works. Because
Yeah.
I would imagine as well, I mean, I haven't worked in an organization working towards HOP. I've always been external to that.
Yeah.
So how is that different from your perspective? Because now you've worked on both sides of both sides of the fence.
Yeah. I think for me, it's that nowadays, let me start with nowadays. Nowadays I get to have all the fun. And what I mean by that is I get to run in and then I get to leave. Right? That's probably some of it, right?
Yeah.
And as I kind of mentioned, I'm definitely not the come in and call your baby ugly and then leave kind of person. I genuinely, my goal in life is to be helpful, right? I genuinely want to be helpful. So it's definitely not that, but it's still a really big benefit to being external. Is I don't reside within that corporate structure. I don't reside within corporate politics. I
Yep.
don't have to live with those folks each and every single day. I just don't have to, right? I don't have to kind of be cautious around this person or tiptoe around that person. I genuinely don't have to do that. Right.
Yep.
So that's probably one of the biggest benefits to being external, right? We always kick around that quote, and I hate using the word profit, but it's hard to be a prophet in your own organization.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
And we're definitely not prophets, but sometimes it is hard to speak truth to power in your own
Yeah.
organization when you reside somewhere, usually in the lower middle portion
Yes.
of that corporate structure, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the biggest differences. Again, is nowadays I get to come in, have all the fun, spend time with all of your amazing employees, get to spend time working on these concepts and working on strategy and helping you do this stuff in real life, in the field, here, there, and everywhere, kind of in between that corporate structure. And then I get to fly home. Right.
Yeah.
That's probably
Yeah.
the first biggest kind of standout thing. And so maybe to even build on that internally, you do have that, right? You live with those folks. You live with
Yep.
those folks. You've been there. You've done that, right? And if you've been around an organization long enough, and you've been a safety practitioner in particular, because we know that especially early on in the journey, that a lot of this stuff tends to fall in the safety practitioner's lap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's not to expand on that conversation, but we know that if you get stuck on safety in HOP, you're minimizing your investment. Just pro tip for everybody out there. But it tends to fall in the practitioner's lap, right? And so if you've been there for more than a few years, you've probably been a very traditional safety practitioner at some point, right? You've been having
Yep.
these conversations with folks about for us it's TRR, for you guys what is Triffer. You've been
Yep.
having that conversation. You've been filling in the pyramid on the wall.
Yep.
you've been changing the numbers on the day since board, and people are looking at you going,
Yep.
well, you were telling us to do this last week, and now you're telling us to do that this week, right?
Yep.
You when you're working internal, you have to overcome some of that. You almost have to redevelop a bit of street cred, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard, right? It's so much harder when you're working internally. Again, I think a lot of it is just the fact that you're in your own house, right?
Yep.
When you get up there and you have that conversation, and you do have to have some of those. Hey, the baby might not be ugly, but it's getting there.
It definitely. It's definitely not going to be Claudia Schiffer. Let's put it that way.
It could definitely use a little lipstick. Right?
Yeah.
It could definitely use a little something, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to have those conversations because, again, you're in that middle, maybe a lot of times in our roles, middle to just kind of right lower middle kind of portion of that structure. And you're having these tough conversations. And then also if it's a place where you want to stay, sometimes you've got that little bit of something in the back of your mind where it's like, yeah, but if I say this, it's true. I believe this to be true, and I think it needs to be said. But if we have this conversation, will this hold me back?
Yeah.
If we decide 5 years from now that we're not going in this direction and it's just a load of it, where does that leave me? And then on the other side of that is then we mentioned the work, right?
Yeah.
The work piece of that. A lot of times, and we lose sight of the fact that there is a lot of legwork that takes place with all this stuff. There is a ton of stuff, especially in those early days, especially before you kind of discover those bright spots, especially, when you're just trying to discover where you're currently at, when you're going out and you're spending time with folks throughout the organization and having conversations and, starting to plant some of these seeds and all of that stuff that kind of happens early days of that journey. It's super time consuming. And usually, as we said, it usually lands in the safety practitioner's lap. On top of that, you got a normal day job too. It just gets wild. It can quickly turn into, 12 or 14-hour days really fast. So again, the primary difference though that I would highlight there is internally is you reside within that structure. And if you reside in the structure that's been very traditional, sometimes you're having to go and you're begging for approval to do something, or you're maybe run the risk of pissing people off a little bit, or you run the risk of stepping on some toes, and you're having to navigate politics, and you're having to navigate that VP or that manager, and you're having to kind of work through that, where externally, of course I'm conscious of where people are at, and I want to meet them where they're at. But again, at the end of the day, I get to go home, and I don't have to come back.
Yeah. You're not worried about whether you say something to the wrong person, whether it's going to hinder your career within an organization, because you don't have that.
Exactly. And then, as we said, internally, once we uncover that, whatever that something is, we say this isn't quite working for us, there's a whole nother set of work that cascades from that. Right. And then it's kind of, we know corporate structures. They say, well, great, you go work on that.
Yes, exactly.
Back to the amount of work that it sometimes can generate over time. Right. So, especially in the early days, it can be a bit of a struggle because it's usually roll of duct tape, chewing gum, some rubber bands, and you're trying to make a difference. And until you start to build a little bit of momentum, until you start to build a little bit of mass to get that ball rolling, it can be quite painful, right? And it can be a lot of work.
Yeah. And, to that point as well, it's not even as if, as a practitioner within the organization, you would be saying or wants to do anything different than an external person, but you don't have the baggage and the burdens and the fears and the relationships that all those things don't hold you back. The external person comes in and they're just a clean slate, fresh person, maybe even valued more because, hey, look, we've had to pay X amount of dollars to get this guy in. He's obviously worth it. He's obviously, he's in demand, blah, blah, blah. His opinion must be worth more, when really, it could be, but it's more likely just a case of that whole saying that you said, you can't be a prophet in your own land. Right. It's always easier to get a profit in.
Well, it's back to that point, right? You think about that VP that calls me, or that safety manager that calls me, that quality leader that calls me, that's somebody in that organization that calls me. Back to kind of how things typically play out for me. A lot of times those folks have already been working. They've already been laying out that groundwork. They've already been kind of, chipping away at and trying to plant some of those seeds of better beliefs and assumptions. They're starting to get there a little bit.
Yeah.
And to your point, though, is a lot of times the great thing for them about that is that, again, they know what they're getting. They know that there's nothing that I share with an organization that you can't readily find probably on a video that that I've made somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But they get to hear it from somebody else, and when you come in and you have that conversation, it really does. It gives them that bit of oomph where they say, "Hey, John Bob, Jane Bob has been saying this for a year. Cool." It does give them that bit of, okay.
Yeah.
To me when I was working
Credence.
internally, right? When I was working internally as a practitioner, same thing, right? No matter, that whole list of names, you name them, we brought them in, right? And they added a lot of value to our organization. Those are great conversations to have, but what was extra good for me as a practitioner, that for several years prior to ever thinking about bringing somebody in, having those conversations, was this. They kind of give me the glance across the room when the person's up there talking, and the glance behind their eye says, "Oh, so you're not crazy." Right? That's
And you're thinking inside, no, I am.
Yeah. It's really more 4D chess, right? We're going, we're all crazy. Right?
Yeah. No one's sane, especially anyone who works in safety, let's be honest. So look, it's been 45 minutes, 46 minutes. If we could, I know it's flown by, isn't it? If we
Yeah.
could, so you've got all these great experience. What would you say would be some of the biggest hurdles that you come up against when you're facing hop? If we could leave, say, like there's some people out there who are planning on listening to this, or
Yeah.
who do listen to it and are planning on looking at hop, what would be like the key things that you could share to say watch out for?
So the first one is going to be a repeat, and the first one is going to be lay the groundwork. I'm serious about that. It feels easy. It feels like calling somebody like me would be the easy button, but I don't want people to waste their money. I genuinely don't. We can do a lot of great work together, but you got to spend some time laying the groundwork first. There's no sense in now. Again, we can come in, we can teach you the principles, we can get that conversation started for you. But before you get to that point, right? Before you get to that point of really going, we're full steam ahead in this direction, you need to spend that time. Somebody like me, we can always be a part of helping you lay that groundwork, but you got to genuinely want it. You got to genuinely believe it. You got to genuinely want to go in a little bit of a different direction, which kind of leads me a bit to my next point. There's a couple things here, and I think I'm going to try my best to describe these without turning it into a rambly mess, but they're really interesting to me. I think organizations that I've spent time in that have done this at what I would call like super user pro level, right? I would call them the professional athletes of the hop world. They're built. They're not born that way, right? They're built that way.
Deliberate.
It's a deliberate act. And there's a couple things there. The first one is something that we've been kind of referring to with a particular organization as their butterfly moments, right? And the whole conversation with their executive team started with this idea that we want to grow towards a butterfly moment. It wasn't a conversation about hop. It wasn't a conversation about this or that or health and safety or anything around those lines. It was that we're a pretty great company, but we want to go from great to extraordinary. And the way that we do that is incrementally over time, laying the groundwork, doing this very deliberately, working our way in that direction. But for you as the executive team, as the board, as the senior leadership team, what we want to share with you is that we want to grow towards this butterfly moment. Now, the thing is that it's going to suck.
Right.
That it's going to be painful. You're going to learn a lot of stuff that challenges your assumptions about the organization. We're going to come up against some stuff that costs some money, that takes some time. It's going to go slower than what we hoped that it would. It's not an easy answer, but we know it's the right path forward. And your role in this is to hold on, to
So that's
support.
That's a
And
whole
hold on.
expectations conversation, isn't it?
Exactly. Setting that expectation that the biggest thing that we need you to do is not abandon ship when times get a little bit hard, because they're gonna, right?
Gotcha.
That's huge. That's huge. Now, on the
Yep.
other side of that, kind of simultaneously within these kind of pro tip super user organizations, they've been having these, what we a lot of times refer to as guerrilla conversations. They've been having these
Guerrilla
kind of
conversations.
these underground movements, right? These kind of underground changes that have started to develop. These kind of guerrilla hop manifestos that they've been kind
Right.
of
Okay.
developing, kind of farther towards the sharper end of work. Right. So you get down at like the lower level manager level, frontline leader level, frontline employee level, kind of down in that supervisor leader, frontline employee level, where they're going, hey, we've been hearing about this. And usually within our safety groups too. The best way to maybe describe this is they're the conversations that we have within maybe more traditionally focused organizations where we shut the door and we go, okay, listen,
Right.
let's talk about this. But if anybody outside of this room hears us, we might get fired, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
they've been having those conversations, and they've started doing things just a little bit differently over time. It seems like when you can get those two things happening at the same time, this bit of grassroots underground kind of movement happening, and you
Yep.
get that executive commitment, you kind of develop this squeeze that happens.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That's absolutely
Yeah.
powerful, because we know at a certain point of maturity, the hardest part within our organizations a lot of times ends up being the middle. We refer to it as the frozen middle for a lot of good reasons, right?
Yep.
Back to the political landscape of organizations, the desire to move up through the organizations, all those different things. But those two things, So you can encourage a bit of that guerrilla movement, that underground grassroots something. You can encourage a little bit of that micro experimenting and innovation, to kind of happen closer to the front line, while also growing that commitment to hang on, even if it's just by your fingernails. Sometimes hang on, because the road's going to get rocky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Encouraging that at the higher levels of the organization, and then doing that over time. Right, laying that groundwork over time, and then creating a bit of that squeeze, you can see some pretty amazing things happen a lot more rapidly than sometimes what we would expect them to. Right. So I
Yeah.
think
Right.
those
Okay.
are a couple really interesting places, at least for me. And all that still goes back to that groundwork piece, right?
Yep.
That's still coming back to that thing is you've got to set those expectations, especially up through your organization, right? You've got to start having those conversations, deep and meaningful, honest conversations, right?
Yep.
Around where we're at. That's a good place to start. Like where we're
Yep.
actually at, not where we wished we were at, not how we wish the world were, or any of those things, but where we're actually at, and where we want to go. Right. I think
Yeah.
those are some of the things that I would encourage folks to really explore, right, as they start thinking about this journey. Because if you don't lay the groundwork, you're not going to have fun. If
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
spend time with your senior leadership team, really, I'm not saying that they all have to be on board. Right. I'm just saying that you really need to prep them up for the rough times that are going to be ahead, because there's going to be some.
Yep.
Right. Preparing them for that, helping to grow those expectations there. If you're not doing those things, you're not going to have a great time. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the nicest way to say it.
No. No. No.
You're going to be tinkering with this, and you're going to be spinning your wheels, and then you're going to get frustrated, and you're just going to say, well, that was a load of crap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 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 No. No. Yeah. No. I appreciate that. And when you were talking, it reminded me a little bit of what Josh Bryan said. I think he termed it ninja style. Going in there and just doing, a lot of these subtle, easy,
Mhm.
cheap things to begin with,
Yeah.
whilst also targeting and the executives in the organization to make sure that when they do start hearing all this information, which the workers want to give, by the way, they
Yeah.
want to freely push up. They want it to be known. They don't, they've been dealing with secrets their entire time. They don't want to deal with them. And
Yeah.
when the senior leaders start getting all that information, it's going to scare the crap out of them. And they're not going to
Yeah.
know, I thought this organization was one thing, and you're telling me it's something completely different.
Yeah.
And of course they're going to be scared about that. They're going to be angry. They're going to be frustrated and annoyed, and that's going to cause a lot of pushback. But if you can get,
Yeah.
like, I think, what you were talking about there, if you can grow the interest at those two extremes and avoid the
Mhm.
frozen middle to begin with, you get the pull and the push effect at the same
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
And then
Exactly.
you
Because
start,
well, sorry, as we know, I mean, a lot of those middle level roles, and I would say even down more towards frontline leaders, um, A frontline leader job to me is the hardest job in any organization.
Yep.
I say that
Yep.
unapologetically. It's the hardest job in any organization. If you have ever been a frontline leader, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is tough because it's the action point for our organization. Any go-do, any bright idea that somebody usually has somewhere in a conference room far, far away, guess who gets to run with it? It's
exactly.
it's usually the frontline leader, and that the instruction is go do this to your people.
Yeah, yeah.
It puts them in a really
quickly,
interesting,
and we want results yesterday.
Yeah, and the action is due in 2 weeks. Yeah, and send me a list with everybody's signatures on it once you get done with the action, right?
Yeah.
It's so I always describe that, you know, as that those different levels in our organizations, more towards the middle of our organizations. A lot of times, you know, you have frontline, like the most frontline employees. You know, you got a bunch of them hanging off each leg, and you got an executive hanging off each arm, and they're just pulling you in two different directions, right? I mean, they're about to pull you apart, and then on top of that, it's, hey, you know, go do this because we think it sounds good, you know. So it's, I get it. I guess that's what I'm really trying to say here. Like, I understand, right? But when you get that difference happening there from both ends, when the expectations from above start to change, right? When those start to change, well, just an event is just a really good example of it, where maybe in the past we could have just said, yeah, you know, John, Bob, Jane Doe, yeah, they were just dumb and messed up. When the executive said, that's a boring answer, tell me something more interesting, that's different, right?
Yeah.
When an employee can come to you and go, hey, listen, here's what really happened, that's different, right? It just starts to completely change the dynamic of what the middle means, right? It completely changes what that means. And so, I think that for me, I love that. I love that from Josh Ninja style. Yeah, for us, we always it means the same thing. We're really saying the same thing. Is that, you know, for us it's more guerrilla style because it's got a little bit more. I think for us it's got a little bit more of an edge. You know, for whatever reason we started calling it that because one organization that we worked in, they literally developed a guerrilla hop manifesto. Right. So it basically they had done it through, you know, their corporate printing, you know, and it was a little spiral bound something. And it looked like, you know, you watch like any of those like serial killer documentaries where they find a manifesto. It looked like one of those. but that's what made it cool for them. Right. It had a little bit of it had a bit of
edge to it.
It had some edge. It had a bit of naughtiness. It felt a little naughty, right? Because we're going, we're going to challenge. We're going to make this so big that it doesn't matter if the executives want to go this direction or not. We're going to now, unbeknownst to them, the executives are going, cool. This is cool. They were going, cool.
I will let them think they're going to be the naughty kids, but really they're doing exactly what we want them to do.
Well, they're doing exactly what we all know is a better path, right?
Exactly.
We know is a better path. But to your point, to bring that back to your point, is that exactly you have to prepare those folks for the information that they're going to receive. HOP gets a bad rap, I think, from folks that don't have a deeper understanding of it. Sometimes it gets the rap of warm and fluffy, right? Warm, fuzzy, fluffy, right?
And I think it's because that whole blame fixes nothing, and people start thinking, oh, well, we can do whatever they want to do then and get away with it. And it's like,
well, and so I will share. I'll share with you this. Are we permitted to use a little bit of profanity? Is that okay?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Okay, I just never know. I never know, so I try to hold it back. I never know. From a session the other day, it's not my quote. It's a quote from a frontline employee. Right. In some of the sessions, we were having these kind of after conversations. And so the first one was this. The first comment was, when I heard that I had to go listen to Sam talk, because they were voluntold, unfortunately. When I heard they had to go listen to Sam talk, I thought that this was going to be another one of those stupid classes where they teach me how to hug people better. Right.
Yeah. Right.
And so the compliment on the other side of that was, it definitely wasn't that. This is super useful. This is great. Right. But then the same employee, a little bit later on in the conversations, they had this realization around that accountability conversation. Their quote was this: HOP is not a get out of jail free card for dickheads.
Yeah.
Which I'm going, I think you got it.
It's an important point to make, isn't it, though? Mm-hmm. Because some people, as soon as they get to that second principle, they go, I've had it. No,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
It just seems like this is all for the employees. They can do whatever they want. There's no
Right.
accountability, blah, 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 blah.
Well, it's not that, right? We know that it's not that, and to that point that I was making, I think that hop gets a bad rap of soft, warm, fuzzy, when really a good friend of mine that's a senior leader, when I was working internally with that organization, he shared with me a little later on after we kind of got a bit farther on our journey. Again, this is me working internally. The way that he shared this with me was, he's like, I've never had any more real conversations in my life. Right? The information is scary, it's raw, it's real, it's weird, it's legitimate information. And that's really the message that I would share with senior leaders: is information is just information. We get to decide we get to decide with our emotions whether we view it as good or bad. But I'm here to tell you, it's not good or bad. It's just better information to make better operational decisions. That's all that it is, right? And so
it's a good framing. It's a good framing.
When I get the "hey, I almost died over their" conversation, good. We can actually do something about that. Like that's the kind of conversation we want. That's a scary conversation. That's a scary conversation for a senior leader to have when they say, we caught that on fire 2 or 3 times in the past, but we put it out. It's fine. It still runs. That could be a bit of a gnarly conversation, right? But those are exactly the conversations that we want to be having in our organizations, because those are exactly the things that we should want to know more about. Right? Those are exactly the things that we should want to get our arms around and learn as much as we possibly can learn about those particular things, which kind of goes back to your point on that principle of blame not fixing much. For me, I always like the phrasing of it of blame stops learning. That's really kind of where I go with a lot of that conversation, is that blame stops learning. And for me, it's that anything that gets in the way of employees telling us the truth is bad for us, and it's bad for our businesses, right? And blame and disciplinary action included. If it gets in the way of people telling us the truth, it's bad for us, right? Because we're losing out on that vital information that we need to make sound operational decisions, right? So
I like that because it moves. Sorry, please.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. The only thing I was going to do is bring that back to the hop's not a get out of jail free card for dickheads. Right? Was that, of course, like I always ask people this question: have you ever had real performance problems in your work roles? And the answer is always, duh, right? Will you have performance problems in your work roles? Duh. Of course you need mechanisms to deal with actual performance problems in your work roles. Duh. It's just that we start to understand that disciplinary action isn't a great way to improve things. Disciplinary action is not a great way to fix people. It doesn't fix people. It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't do what we had hoped that it would have done, right? Is it required sometimes? Is it necessary? Sure. But we start to really, the way that we view that starts to change over time. We really get away from viewing it as a way to fix people, and we start to view disciplinary action as a way to really remove people from systems of work in which they don't belong, right? If you've got somebody that shows up to work and says, man, I really can't wait to hurt Bob. Man, I really can't wait to cause trouble and hurt things, cause problems. Man, I really can't wait to just get in there. And it's usually it could be the same person that's going, I just can't wait to get in there and not do anything, take a nap. Performance problem is a performance problem is a performance problem, and manager performance problems. But almost always we know that is just the smallest sliver of the pie, where in the past, we viewed that as the largest chunk. That people are the problem. Exactly. We can just get better people or fix people, everything will be fine.
Exactly. And if you do have those people, that's not a safety problem. That's an HR issue.
Exactly. And then I'm more interested not in because again, a lot of times, I don't know who first said this. I was not the first person to say it. I just repeated a bunch. I don't know. Right. There's a lot of quotes that float around in our world.
I'm the same. But I pick wisdom from other people and say, that's mine. Yeah. That's
exactly. Right. Well, my goal is to one day be one of those misquoted pictures. Where it's you know what I mean, where it's like life's not about the number of breaths you take, but about the moments to take your breaths away. Sam Goodman. I want to be one of those misquoted pictures one day, right?
We can come up with one about Red Bull. It's going to be one about Red Bull. We can attribute to you.
Exactly. Yeah, but it's to me it's exactly that. It's that understanding that, or the quote. Oh, sorry, I was going to go squirrel. The quote that I really appreciate around that. Again, not mine. It was probably Todd. It was probably one of those folks. And if they don't claim it, then I'm going to take it. But it was that quote around that. If you're applying disciplinary action a lot of times, almost always around events, because we see this around unintended operational surprises. A lot of times is really what we're talking about, right? There was no malice, there was no sabotage, there was no ill intent. It was people trying to do the best that they can in a weird, wacky, and wild world. And they've done it successfully almost always. Now, all of a sudden, they've done it not so successfully. When we punish those people, we're almost always punishing people. We're trying to punish them out of doing something that they didn't intend to do in the first place, hoping that they won't do it again.
Yeah.
Right. So I never intended for that to happen to begin with. I was just trying to get that done for you.
Yeah.
So when we think of it in more of that lens, or through that lens a bit, we start to go, well, yeah, that really doesn't do much except for make you not want to tell me stuff. Which doesn't seem very useful to us.
There's two things there, isn't there? They've had a shitty time, and you just made it 10 times worse. Plus, also as well, I mean, I don't know what your hierarchies of control like are in America, but in here in Australia, at no point does it say elimination, and then just beneath that, fire people who have accidents.
Exactly.
It's not a control. It's not a control within the hierarchy of control, is it? Let's be honest.
No. Well, and that's it. I mean, there's it's such a rarity in our worlds, within our work worlds. And usually the way that I think of it is like this: you will have performance problems. So again, I'm going to use a little bit of profanity because you told me I could. Okay.
Yep.
But in our work, a lot of times we refer to it as the shithead clause, right? So in Safety Sucks, the Manifesto, that's been a minute ago, one of those books, we wrote a little bit about what we called the shithead clause. And I say I wrote that book with a good friend of mine, Ian Allison, who's a safety consultant that eventually moved over into operations leadership.
Yep.
But the shithead clause was is that shitheads exist within our worlds. Like, it's just a fact. You will find a shithead from time to time. They do exist. There are people out there that genuinely just want to cause harm. There are people out there that really, really have ill intent. Those people, we would be insane to believe that those people don't exist within our worlds. But with our work worlds, with all the mechanisms that we have to filter those people out, right? That number is much smaller within our work worlds than what it is in our general every day-to-day worlds, right?
Yeah.
You think about the pre-hiring process that most folks have to go through to get into an organization, the tests for this and the tests for that and background checks, and some places here, I mean, they draw blood or pull your hair out to just make sure you don't smoke cigarettes, right? Like, really? I mean, it gets wild, right? So we pre-sort pretty good, right? Some of those folks will still trickle through, right? And when you find when you find a true, genuine shithead within your work world, somebody that intended to cause harm, safety or otherwise, I don't think that safety is so important. It needs its own performance management, something. I think we've already got a lot of those, right? When you find that person, manage that. Of course. It's just that lever should be all the way at the other end of the spectrum, right? Because most organizations, that's usually the first step. Did they do something wrong? Guess what you're going to find? Of course they made a mistake. Of course they made an error. Of course they bent a rule, broke a rule. Of course. It's always there, right? You're always going to discover that. And if it's at the first step of the process, that's where you're going to stop. If our organizational systems are designed to push us in that direction, for us to pin the cause on that, then of course that's where we're going to stop. And we're going to view disciplinary action as a way to make that not happen anymore. But unfortunately, when we do that, almost always we're missing so much. So the way that I tend to think about that is that because a lot of times we'll pin those things on human error, right? We'll say human error, mistake, misjudgment, something along those lines of basically saying that somebody messed up, some level of mess up there. When we stop there, it's like someone handing you this big, thick, dusty book that's just full of tons and tons and tons, a really super interesting story, right? Hundreds of pages of an interesting story, something like you'd really want to read. It's like getting that book, opening it up to the first page, reading somebody messed up, closing the book and putting it back on the shelf, and then pretending that we know the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of times the way that we've approached that.
That's a good analogy. That's a really good analogy.
We've stopped there and we've pulled that disciplinary action lever, right? And just gone that way. So I guess the point that I was really trying to make there, which is a much simpler way of saying that, is that the vast majority of people, as we know, show up to work to do a good job. Almost all of them. Yep. Every now and again, you'll discover performance problems. Sure. And you should manage performance problems. But if you're trying to solve your organizational problems, like the actual problems with that lever of disciplinary action, you're going to be disappointed because it's not going to fix very much.
In fact, it's more likely to do a lot more harm than fix
Eh,
anything at all.
well, for me, is that we end up going down this path, right? And we view disciplinary action as like one of the main parts of improvement for us for whatever reason. Of course, it results in our organizations to grow quieter and quieter over time. Of course, it results in these kind of little subcultures of secrecy that develop within our organizations. And the end of that path is silence, right? It's
Yeah.
silence. The thing to me is that there's a lot of stuff in our work worlds that should scare us. There's a lot of stuff that should scare us.
Yep.
But the thing that should scare us the most, the thing that should scare the absolute shit out of us is silence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything that makes it hard for people to tell you the truth is bad for us, and it's bad for business. And it can ultimately cost people their lives.
And it's bad for performance of the organization as well. But
Yeah.
Sam, I could talk to you for hours.
Same here, man. This is awesome. I love it.
I honestly really do.
You got me all jacked up on Red Bull. We're having fun. Yeah.
I honestly really do appreciate your time, and you know, I really could listen for ages. It's we could. I don't know.
Well, if we go too much longer, though, so it's about 4:15, I'll have to switch over to beer at some point.
But, no. I'm gonna have to go because God, we're pushing an hour and 10 minutes now. But I really do appreciate it. And what I'm going to do for people who are listening, if you want to know more about Sam's books, Sam's podcast, Sam's LinkedIn profile, I'm going to put all those links in the description below, so you can go straight there, have a look at all the books that he's written. There'll be a link, as I said, to his podcast as well. You can go back to the archives. You can start looking at how people, over those 300 odd interviews that he's had, how people have been integrating some of the problems they've had, some of the successes they've had, some of the gems and pearls that they can share with you. And hopefully, if Sam agrees, it'd be great to have you back on at some point, Sam, to talk about, just talk some more. I'll provide the Red Bull. I'll send it over. And it'd be awesome to get you back on, mate. I really have appreciated your time.
Yeah, I would absolutely love it. More than happy to come back anytime, my friend.
Legend.